Hi, my name is Rosemarie Bongers. I'm an assistant teaching professor at the University of California, Merced. So math is something that I always really enjoyed doing as a kid. I really like doing logic puzzles and problem solving. Like I was the kid who was always doing a Sudoku or a Kokoro or some sort of puzzle like that. And I really loved seeing all the patterns come out of things. My first thing that I did mathematically was I would like drawing factor trees, breaking down a number into its factors and seeing how far I could go. So that naturally transitioned into doing more math in high school and then eventually in college. So I didn't actually even know that a mathematician is something that I could be. I thought it was just like a historical job that people used to have in the 1700s or something until I got to college. So I was planning on being an engineer because I liked physics, I liked math, I liked building things. But I was sitting in my calculus class on the very first day of my very first semester, and the professor, as part of introducing himself, said that he had really, really loved math, and that when he graduated college, he wanted to go to a place where he could just do math all the time. And that place was called Math Grad School. And for some reason, that phrase just stuck in my head, even though it's like 15 years ago. I decided, wow, that sounds really interesting. I want to know more about this subject, so I'm going to try. And so I started taking more math classes and eventually started going to talks and seminars and realizing that research is actually a thing that I could do and that people actually really study math as a living, breathing field. And that got me really excited. So I also decided to go to math grad school, and then the rest sort of follows from that. So I actually do two kinds of math that are sort of separate from each other. One is in a field called geometric measure theory or harmonic analysis. So I study fractals. These are these shapes that have some complexity, some structure, and then you zoom into a small part of the picture, and there's more complexity and more structure, and you zoom in further, and there's even more complexity. And you just keep zooming in, and it gets more and more complicated the farther you go down. And there's a lot of really interesting mathematical properties to these. They show up a lot in nature, like in sunflower seeds, in coastlines. They also show up a lot in engineering. So they can be used for computer graphics, for data compression, antenna design. So there's something that really show up in a lot of different areas. And I think it's really cool having this idea of the structure getting more and more complicated as you zoom in further and further into an object. The second kind of math I do is about data analysis. So I'm a teaching professor, so a lot of the work I do is about curriculum design, curriculum assessment, understanding how our teaching program is actually going. So I do a lot of big data analysis on students and student outcomes and grades and the impact of our mathematics courses. So a lot of the struggles that I faced in my career are related to my identity. So I'm a trans woman. I'm also neurodiverse. I have ADHD. And so this has led to a lot of impacts on me, both as a student and as a graduate student, and then as an early career professor as well. So I actually didn't come out as trans until I was in my second postdoc. So I had gone through a lot of my career as, a straight white man, sort of looking like a very stereotypical mathematician. But on the inside, there was always this disconnect with the mathematical community. I never felt like I fit in, and of course, this felt the same with society in general. And so I tried to push that down. I tried to make it quiet. I tried to just honestly do as much mathematics as possible, completely throw myself into my work so that I didn't have to think about these things and think about how I fit into the world. And of course, when you shut off a big part of yourself and you try to kill that part of you, then it really causes a lot of problems with anxiety and depression and just feeling disconnected and out of place. So this finally came to a head when I was at my previous institution. I came out and it was a huge relief. It just made everything so much better for me. But all of a sudden, it now made it very hard to fit in visibly into the mathematical community. So transitioning while I was on the job market and while I was applying for jobs was an incredibly emotionally draining experience because a lot of institutions are not very trans friendly. They may not have trans inclusive policies. They may misgender or dead name you constantly throughout the interview process. It's just this extra bit of stress and emotional labor that you have to go through on top of an already taxing experience of being on the job market. So that's what led to a lot of the struggles, especially just being in the mathematical community as an openly queer, neurodiverse woman has been a very weird experience. It makes me connect on such a deeper emotional level with other people and with my students, but I also notice how certain colleagues will talk over me or ignore my ideas when they didn't before. So that can be very, very frustrating. So there's actually two sort of separate ones that I want to mention. So one is a purely mathematical one. So as part of studying fractals, I build examples of fractals. And I mix this with other areas of mathematics, such as complex analysis. So I came up with a way to take these things called quasi-conformal maps. They're mathematical objects that can stretch and deform and twist and rotate, but only in precisely controlled ways that don't allow for tearing. And I built this way to combine them that people hadn't realized before and came up with some really cool fractal examples of these maps that had this degree of complexity that was simultaneously very predictable and very controlled, but also very complicated. And so it led to some really cool results and kicked off a lot of ideas that I had in my subsequent research. The other accomplishment that I really want to mention is much more personal. It's going through with transitioning and being visible and open about it in the mathematical community. It's something that is still an ongoing part of my life because transitioning is, it's a process, not just a moment. But being able to be in these spaces as me, being able to connect with my students, being able to have students tell me that it matters, that I'm there, they're some of the proudest moments of my life. So there have been so many people that have been role models or supportive of me, starting especially as an undergraduate student. So it all goes back to that very first day of calculus. The professor was Darren Funk Neubauer. He really got me excited about math and took an interest in me and invited me into viewing math as something that's living and beautiful and something that people can do. And then as I developed as a student, I met so many other supportive people like James Lewisell, Janet Barnett, Bruce Lumberg, who really helped me through research and grad school applications and all these really big parts of my life. So they helped me into mathematics. My advisor in graduate school, Ignacio Uriarte Tuero, was somebody who was incredibly supportive and really encouraged me to be me in mathematics. But then one of the really wonderful degrees of support I found was when I was a teaching postdoc at Harvard, because there were so many wonderful people who were openly queer and supportive of me being a queer mathematician. And they really helped me through that process of coming out, figuring out how I fit in, and then sort of rejoining the mathematical world as the actual authentic version of me. So the entire preceptor group at Harvard was such a huge part of my life and becoming me. For me, math is such a social and community activity. People think of math as like the mathematician sitting in an office off at the ivory tower alone and, just scribbling on paper for hours and hours. And to me, that's not what it is. It's about the community, it's about meeting people, it's about finding kindred spirits in math. And that's where I get my joy in mathematics from. It's from finding people that support and care for others, people that are willing to do the hard work to make inclusive spaces, people who are really just kind, nice people to do this very cool scientific activity with. So finding my community has made math into such a beautiful and joyful experience. And that's really why I do it.